Hello, dear friends, my lovely audiences, ladies and gentlemen, my dear fellow Americans. Welcome to the East West Show. Jack Chow on the East West with G&E TV. I believe everybody knows my good friend, Commander Shamas of U.S. Navy, parenthesis retired, and a former candidate for Congress of the 29th District.
29th District.
If you're talking about representation, though, I believe, in my eye, he's the one most qualified to represent. So, with that, welcome, sir.
Well, it's great to be
Back
here,
to the
Jack.
show.
Again, it's so wonderful to be with you. I mean, you have such a warm audience, and you're vivacious and full of life personality.
Thank you.
And staying on topic of the day is great for all of us, the listeners, myself, and everybody that's engaged and cares about our community.
Mm-hmm. Of course, of course. I would like to say a few things about the past election. So this is call it a post-election discussion or post-election philosophy or post-election politics, you may call it. To me, the beauty of democracy is that you have every now and then an election, right? And the other side of the beauty of democracy is that the winners are winners, and losers not winning are still winning because you are on top of democracy. Participation is the key. At least you tried, and then another time, right? So, do you share the same take with me? And I have a bigger question remain.
Okay.
So I would like to share with you bit by bit.
Well, I agree with you. I think, elections are cyclical, meaning that every so often there's an election, just like Jack said. Winning or losing an election is really, the winners go on, and the losers are really not losers. They are winners because they participated in our democracy. That's what makes this country one of the best in the world, because we have a process where people can participate. And we participated, and we move on, and we look at how can we work together to improve our lives and the lives of the people that we care about.
Mm-hmm.
And our community, of course, yes.
That's a very clear-minded take, because you're not saying that like, say, a basketball game, right?
Yeah.
So it's 1-1 versus 100. The 1-1 wins, of course, the extra score. And that is the winner, and the other one is not. Even then, I say the 100, the team of 100, though, is also a wonderful team, right?
Well, yes,
so,
of course.
And one score might mean nothing, right? So, and other question, like I said, is maybe bigger. Problems remains. Am I right? It is not that the election is gone, the problems are gone. It's not that. Problem remains. How do you take on that, sir?
Well, this is the irony that we face today. Because so few are participating in our voting, in our political process, you end up having the same people there. And unfortunately, when the problems are not addressed, it's like taking this and moving it down here. It's not a problem for me here, but it is still a problem. They kick the can down the road.
Kick the can down the road.
They have not really addressed and solved any of the issues that affect our community, affect our great country, or affect our economy, and affect our international relations, which is really the key of success and maintenance of dominance, is the economy that keeps all of us driving towards a brighter future. And that's what we really have to focus. How can we improve our economy that is so interrelated across the globe with so many other economies? So that's something we're going to talk about later.
Good, very good. And I would rather that we do not postpone it. We once again want to emphasize it. What I feel so glad about was that during your campaign, many of your ideas, your concept, and your principles being promoted and being known by the lots of audiences, my audiences, including audiences the other day at the seminar. Do you recall how big applause after applause every time you make a point?
That
And
was
those
very
are
kind of the people. It was very thoughtful. And this is, when people care, they understand and they want to be part of the solution. Unfortunately, so many people are tied up in their day-to-day activities that they fail to participate in the process. They fail to go and vote. They fail to register to vote. And then, they have so many things they're worrying about, but the solutions are in front of them, and they're not reaching out to be part of that solution. So, yeah.
And for example, the other day at your seminar, you mentioned about the national defense expenses, right? In other words, U.S. military expenses.
Right.
So I believe the problem is still there, right? And the problem is the one that we need to tackle, well, before it's too late, before we spend too much more money into that area. You want to say it again, please?
Sure.
Because election's over, the subject's not over.
The elections are over, yes, but they'll be around in 2 more years. So
Yeah.
we have to start an early process to kind of inform people of what's really going on. Now, as you know, and I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again, we have over 1,000 military bases across the world. That are the unclassified numbers. There are a lot more, but we can't tell you because those numbers are actually
I see.
classified. And my theory is that we have no need for that many military bases overseas, because today's technologies, today's information interlocked systems that we have, we can be anywhere in the world within
Hours.
less than a day. So there's no conflict that we're not aware of. There is no activity that is going to slip by our process. So my take was that we reduce the number of military bases we have overseas. And the places that we do have leases where we cannot disengage, I mentioned to Jack that I think if we turn those into economic cooperation centers, economic hub zones, so that we can do business with those host countries instead of simply being a military engagement activity, we turn it into a business center so that those countries can sell their products to us, and more importantly, and just as equally as important, is that we would sell our products. So we would have business groups and business interrelations. They would be business development centers, no longer military bases.
That's
it would benefit us tremendously, and would also benefit
That's really,
global
really
trade.
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's really wonderful. Speaking of the trade, though, speaking of international trade, we really want to come back to talk about international trade. Today, my dear friend, my lovely audience, is with me is my good friend, Commander Joe Shamaz of U.S. Navy, retired, and former candidate for Congress 29th District. Even though he didn't make it, that doesn't mean he will not do it 2 years from now. Well, we just wait and see. Let's take a short moment out. We will come back to continue on the international trade front. Stay with us, please. Hello, lovely friends, my dear audiences. Welcome back to the show. Jack Chow on the East West Show with GNE TV. Today with me is my good friend, Commander Shamaz of U.S. Navy, retired, former candidate for Congress, United States, 29th District. Making it or not making it is one thing. To have the constant will to represent people, to give a service to the country is the other. All right. So with that, welcome back, sir, to the show.
Thank you.
All right. We just mentioned about your concept about turning some of the obsolete military base. When I say obsolete, I mean time has developed. We evolve as time goes by, as technology goes by. What was necessary yesterday might not be necessary today. Yeah. However, the base is there. The base is there. according to my friend Commander Shamaz, says we can turn those bases into something that will benefit the United States, right? Okay,
Yeah.
back to your point, please. How we want to do it?
So I would say, let's say, example, we're right now we have military bases throughout Europe. We have some in Asia and so on. But I look at one of our biggest trading partners. We don't have, I call it, an economic development zone where we can mutually work together to improve trade between our two great countries. Number one and number two world trading partners are the U.S. and China. And what do we have today? Do we have a single point of cooperation where we can actually develop mutual respect for our economies and to prosper and share in the kinds of trade that benefits both? We don't have, but we do have a lot of military bases that we should kind of, like I said earlier, we should convert them into economic development zones. So my suggestion would be we build, not necessarily build, but establish an economic development center in China.
All right.
To foster trade. I believe that working together by developing this center, we can invite trade groups from the U.S. and trade groups from China to kind of work together and saying what are the needs of the locals, what are our needs, and how we can marry those together so that we can really respond to each other's needs. That's what mutual respect and mutual economic cooperation comes up with, ways to solve each other's production abilities and technological exchange of ideas and goods and products.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for that. That exactly reminds me of a concept, or of the difference between two concepts, right? Two doers, when such a thing can turn into positive, like a hub that brings group together. It really tells that when you think negatively, things will never go that way. So, I like that idea. I like that concept, though. So with that said, now that exactly on the contrary, that between U.S. and China, we do have this big conflict of trade tariff, right? And they call trade war, tariff war, whatsoever. What's your take in that subject, please?
You know, I have a difficult issue sometimes understanding why we, as a great country, do what we do. Why our leaders undertake certain self-imposed damage to our country, whether it's economic or otherwise. I look at these tit for tat, because that's what they are. It's kind of like a little, for lack of better way to describe it, it's like a bunch of high school kids with a different view on things, and their way of attracting attention to themselves is by biting or sniping at the other person to see who's boss. The reality is, and this is one of the things that Jack and I agree on, I believe that dialogue, that talking to each other is the way we solve solutions.
Okay.
That's the way we address our differences, and that's the way we resolve our differences. But snipping and biting back, it's not going to help anybody. And this is where the stage we're at right now is the snipping stage. We're not at the talking stage to get back together. We have to get back to saying, okay, we do, and actually since 1972, our economy has grown exponentially because of the open trade that we have now with the Great Republic of China. Before that, our economy was 1/10 what it is today. And it's grown because the ability to import so many of the products at such an incredibly beneficial price for us that our consumption has grown immensely. So when we look at trade, we have to look at the benefits as well as the non-benefits. And And so far, we have achieved an incredible benefit to our economy through the trade with China. And I want to remind everybody, China holds some of the largest treasury notes
Oh yeah,
that
right.
our country
Our
keeps
debt.
printing.
Yeah.
So our debt is actually financed by the Great Republic of China. And we have to remember that trade is no longer regional. Trade is global. And the economies of the world are so much more interconnected than they were years ago. Like right now, some of the trade tit for tat is actually going to hurt a lot of our producers in California. So many of the new tariffs that China is actually placing,
Okay.
it's going to hurt our local economy. And so we have to remember,
Yes.
and we have to remind our elected leaders to stand up and say, Mr. President, start talking, stop snipping. Start talking, stop snipping. Talking is the way to resolve.
Because tit for tat will not work.
No.
It doesn't work.
But
ever.
none of our politicians have the cahoots to stand up and speak, and that's really
Okay.
sad.
Okay. Let's lay down those benefit part a little bit though.
Yeah.
And let's get to the top of the problem. I know that you're not a career politician. You are a business consultant, right?
Yeah.
From a business consultation point of view, though, do you think the reason I'm asking is that lots of people are getting allergic or oversensitive to the conflicts. They use big words, a trade war, tariff war, or whatever, U.S. relationship, U.S.-China relationship broken down or going or heading whatever direction whatsoever, so forth. So, to your knowledge, as a international business consultant, so do you think it is normal to have the conflict day by day, or, by the way, another way, is there in a period of history that there is no conflict at all in the entire world?
Well, Jack, I mean, clearly you know that we have a great relationship with China. And, even with partners, sometimes there are differences on how we approach certain things. And I believe this is just a temporary glitch. I believe that this is a temporary glitch, meaning that it will be over soon and things may not necessarily be back the way they were, but they're going to improve. Because the reality is, everybody knows that through trade, we increase our livelihood. Trade is a two-way street. We import and we export. So if we want to import from them, we have to export to them too. And I believe that business people, I'm a business consultant, and business people know that if their business suffers, they'll stop writing checks to politicians who hurt their businesses. And when politicians are hitting their pockets, believe me, they listen.
All right, good. Well, yeah. When they feel the pain, right?
They feel the
listen.
pinch, they'll stop.
Yeah, speaking of that, though, I still want to review in history that U.S. and China had been shoulder to shoulder, especially in the fight against the fascism and in the fight against the Japanese invaders.
Yeah.
We stood shoulder to shoulder. Example, there are many examples. U.S. helped China with the Flying Tigers.
Yes.
Am I right?
Absolutely.
U.S. helped China with the Burma Road from South Asia to Kunming, all the way for the longevities of the war materials, right? And then I recall another event that after bombing Tokyo, and those fighters landed in China.
Yes.
And because there is no airport whatsoever, and they had no fuel, right? And then it was the Chinese villagers helped them cover them.
Yes.
And the Japanese, in order to revenge, they searched around almost southern part of China to get them. And for that, they even slaughtered a whole village
Well,
Chinese
in
parents.
addition to that, I mean, I don't want to talk about the gruesome details, but we want to highlight that during that time, the Japanese actually forced a lot of the Chinese women into not so really, we want to say it, and the truth is, they forced them into
The comfort woman.
to become yes,
The comfort woman. Yeah.
And to me, that's one of the most demeaning things that you can do to nations. So, China and the U.S. have a very warm history, and then so it's not something that just developed overnight. It was a process where we knew
Exactly.
that we both were on the same side,
Exactly.
and we worked together. So we solved a lot. That conflict of World War II, Japan was dominating the Asian peninsula, which affected China directly. At that time, remember, China was not a great military power. It was an economic power, but it was not a military power. And so we were there, and we kind of stopped the
And again,
Japanese.
it was
Yes.
the United States who ended World War II.
Yes.
With two presents to Japan. All right.
We did that in Hiroshima and Nagasaki,
Okay.
and that
Sure.
kind of
All
stopped
right.
the whole thing.
My dear
So,
friend,
yeah.
my lovely audience, is with me today is my dear friend, Commander Shamaz of U.S. Navy, retired, and the former candidate for Congress. We are talking about trade and trade relationship versus international relationship. Namely, we're talking about between U.S. and China. We had a warm and long history. Well, it can't go wrong. So stay with us. We'll be right back, please. Hello, dear friends, the lovely audiences. Welcome back to the show. Jack Chow with JD TV on the East West Show for many, many years with the glory, with lots of pride, because I take this as a privilege to sit here to talk face to face to so many wonderful people that I feel that I go back to school and every single day is my class day. So for that, I thank you very much, sir. And for that, I thank all my audiences who's been mentoring me ever since. So go back to today. With me is my good friend, Commander Shamaz of U.S. Navy, retired and former candidate for Congress or 29th District. And we're sharing the thought about international relationship. Namely, we're talking about the trade conflict. I really want to call conflict, not a war, quite an exaggeration. And this is agreed upon by my friend Commander Shamaz. We go from there. So talking about U.S. relationship, there are many, many, many incidents to talk about, very historical moment that we can't afford to forget. Am I right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, look, we're not just looking at these trade conflicts with China. Unfortunately, we're snapping at all our friends, and our friends and foes alike. So it's not like we're singling anybody out. So I wouldn't look at that as a war against China. I would look at it, as Jack said, it's just a kind of a. It's like in the ocean, you have waves, ups and downs, and this is one of those down periods, but it's going to go back up. Because realistically, trade with China is one of our largest impacts that affect our economy. And as I said earlier, when our economy is affected, people listen. Our politicians listen. When business people's pockets are affected, they will shut those
You
faucets.
stop cutting check to them, they will listen.
They will wake up. So I look at throughout in Europe now, we're even actually starting to do quite a bit of trade sanctions against European allies. So
European,
we have to
Canada,
work together to kind of come and
Mexico.
start talk to each other. We even with Mexico we're doing it. With Canada, with I don't know who's left. It's like
Yeah.
we're almost like a little dog who's lost and is biting everybody trying to find their way.
What's going on, right? What's
Exactly,
going on,
exactly.
right? Okay.
So I think it's going to come back.
That said, though,
to-
that reminds me,
Yes.
the last Qing dynasty with the lady in power, right? She declared war against 11 countries at the same time. She declared war. Of course, well, she learned the lesson within a few weeks.
Yeah.
Right? So, well, better not do that. Well, talking about
Spread
whole,
too thin.
yeah, talking about whole Europe plus Canada plus Mexico, and
plus
who is
China.
left? Oh, Australia too.
Oh, we did with Australia. that's
Australia
right.
too.
And New Zealand.
New Zealand, right? So where have we left? We left Mars, probably. We don't want to do that, do we?
I don't know, Jack. I don't know sometimes what our politicians are thinking about. And this is a sad truth, is that they have forgotten what they are there for. They are there to represent the best interests of the United States and the best interests of our economy. And they're not doing that. They are not doing that. And we have to start realizing that we have a voice. We should speak and we should participate. Call your representative and say, what is going on? We want peace. We want productivity. We want jobs. We want our economy to prosper and grow.
Yeah, that really makes sense. Instead of getting oversensitive to this issue, to whatever state, you better write to your congressman, congresswoman, your senator, whoever represent you, to say that what's going on. To ask them what's going on. We don't want to see that happen. And also, Commander, I really want to share something with you. It is really out of the bottom of my mind. If everybody goes against this trade conflict, I am in particular, because in my position, I still take China as my country too. I have two countries. I have two parent countries, motherland and the fatherland, right? So the worst thing happened is a mother, father, they fight. Right?
Yes.
You know what?
Divorce is not
Yeah,
good.
divorce is not
Not
good,
good,
right?
yeah.
Even though, well, this is a free country, they can divorce, but they kind of are turning back to each other. That's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So I'll do everything I can within my, if I had authority. I don't have an authority. I'm in a platform. Well, I will call for peace, 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 peace. Please come down, right?
Yeah.
And on the other hand, I really like your point. Communication is the key.
Yeah.
Yes, there are problems, right? Yes, we lose money, right? Is it, well, I mean, do you think it's much better for them to sit down and say, hey, guy, show me how much you lost, okay? Let me make it up for you.
I don't think it's the numbers. I think it's a concept. I think it's the idea that, we're going to go through periods where we're going to sell them more than we buy from them. And there are going to be times when we buy more from them than we sell to them. So those things are cyclical. I wouldn't say, well, this year I lost or I sold and you didn't buy. I would more focus on what is it that we have that they need that we can provide to them. Because I think in business transactions, it's a supply and demand. What do they have that we need? What do we have that they need? And let's do it that way. Sometimes they might not have anything we need. So we look somewhere else and get it from somewhere else. So that's the issue. The issue is not, direct balances. The balances has to be throughout the spectrum of the nations that we do business with. If we buy too much from one country and we don't sell them enough, maybe we're selling to another country a lot more and we're not buying enough. So the balances has to be within, not necessarily just unilateral. They have to be an umbrella wide.
I see. I don't know how you, as a business consultant, take at this. We always talk about bilateral trade, right? So if there is an imbalance, there is a deficit or whatsoever of a bilateral trade, though, do you think the multilateral would make it up? For example, if I'm losing dealing with you, In the meantime, I can gain dealing with Jonathan. And when Jonathan deals with you, and you lose to Jonathan the benefit. And then let's get three parties involved rather than two on tit for tat.
Well, this is
Does it work that way?
Clearly the answer is is we have to look at the totality of the trade. Just like if you go to you have a budget at home. Well, I'm going to spend so much on gasoline, and I'm going to spend so much on food. I'm going to spend so much. As long as what I'm spending is equaling to or less than what I'm making.
All right.
And this is the same with trade. We're dealing with country A, we're dealing with country B, and we're dealing with country C. Well, maybe country C is population 10 million. We can't sell them as much as they're going to buy from us. So there might be an imbalance there. But here, country B may be 500 million
all right,
people.
Good.
So we can sell more, and we can. So we have to look at the total picture, and then we're saying, okay, now what are the numbers adding? Like you said in the beginning, what are the numbers? Then you look at the totality of the numbers. And sometimes we have to say to ourselves, we are a major consumer country. We're really not. We waste a lot. In our consumption.
Yeah, we do.
We waste so much.
That for sure,
that,
yes.
That
That for
you
sure.
have to ask yourself, if we were paying a proper amount of a proper amount for some example, let's say this water cost X number of cents. If it cost, and then when it's halfway, we throw it. Well, same thing with a big hamburger. We buy a hamburger, a quarter pounder, or a half pounder, or double, or whatever they're called, and then we eat it, and then we throw half of the French fries away. So if we look at, had the price been adjusted so that we actually only use what we're gonna need, maybe our trade balances throughout the world would be probably more balanced.
Yeah, could be the same thing, right?
Yes.
Could be the same thing.
Yes.
All right. Okay, my good friend audience, my dear friends, and I like this analysis made by Commander Shamas. Commander Joe Shamas has quite a concept that I adore a lot. I really like his high vision from a grassroots point. Those kind of not easy to make, but really make sense. Let's take a very short moment out. When we come back, we'll continue with that theme to see what could be the solution so far. All right. It looks like we're in the impasse at this very moment, though. What is the key to unlock it? So stay with us, please.
Thank you.
Hello, dear friends, lovely audiences. Welcome back to the show, Jack Chow on the East West Show with GNE TV. Commander Shamas of the U.S. Navy, retired, and former candidate of Congress for 29th District, is with me, sharing his thought on the issue. I call it trade relation versus international relation. Because you have a happy trade, you are happy people, right?
Yes.
You have an unhappy trade relationship, you are a pair of unhappy people, something like that kind, right? So we're back to the point. It looks to everyone that these two countries has come into an impasse, right? And there is no indication showing when would be next round of talk. They just say the numbers on the lips. I say 200 billion or 400 billion or whatsoever. And China says we'll do the same thing, going on and on and on. So what to you as a business consultant, right? Just assume they both come to you to consult. What would you tell them?
I think that would be a unique and a welcome opportunity if they did really ask me, what are your solutions? Solutions in life are based on honest, and trusting relationship. So first thing we've got to do is stop this, like I called it in the beginning, snipping at each other. Because in snipping, nobody wins. Both sides are going to have wounds, and both sides are going to need time to heal. So the first thing we've got to do is have a period of healing. Stop the snipping back and forth.
Okay.
More tariffs and more counter tariffs and more, because it's natural. Look, if you have a force in nature pushing this way, there's got to be an equal force to neutralize it back the other way. It can't overrun the opposing force. So I would say the first thing would be to sit down and just calm down.
Sit down, calm down.
Take a week.
Cool down.
Let's sit down at a resort here in somewhere in California, somewhere in Shanghai, somewhere, and sit down and chill out a little bit.
Or Hawaii Beach,
Hawaii, or anywhere. Let's sit down and chill. No talking business. Let's just relax, get to know each other. Because I think through personal interrelationships, conflict resolution starts. We could agree to disagree, but we agree that our momentum has to be on a parallel road. Not at a crossroad, not at an intersection. So when we agree on the principles of we're running on a parallel course, I think we can resolve almost everything that we have disagreements on.
You're right.
It's an issue of the tariffs, the cost of steel, and so on. That's what we've got to look at. Okay, we buy steel from them at X number of value. Well, they buy from us this at X value too. So we've got to balance those things out.
By the way, what would you suggest specifically to each country? In other words, what would you suggest to United States? What would you suggest to China?
Well, my suggestion would be, one, to listen to what their concerns are. Because in order to solve issues, you have to hear what the problems are. And so I would listen to what is the problem. It's been going fine for all these years. Why is it today a problem? What happened that changed that? Is it something that was done unilaterally, or is it something that changed? So we have to look and ask ourselves, if it has been working smoothly for all these years, what changed? And I think when we answer that question, then we can start addressing how could we really resolve it. And what really did change? What changed is our elected leaders decided unilaterally. I'm American. I love America more than anything. I served in the Navy for almost 25 years. So my heart is all American. But I'm also a realist, and you have to tell the truth the way it is. When we do something wrong, we have to stand up and say we did wrong, or we have to, as in Navy nautical terms, we have to adjust the sail to going back to smoother waters.
All right, good.
If the wave is coming, you can't go sideways. You can't put your ship sideways.
Flip it over.
You have to. So we have to adjust the way we are doing business to be able to go back to the way it was with some modifications.
In other words,
let's get back to
listen.
Yes.
To listen, to see, to find out the problem.
Yes.
What the problems are, right?
Yes.
And then what's next?
Well, the second step is then, once you listen to what the issues are, then it's easy to address them. My issue is, you're holding too much of my treasuries. Well, the response may be, well, you owe me too much money. Well, where else am I going to put my money? You're one of the largest economies, and you spend, and so I lend you money to spend. So if you're complaining about buying from me, how about I complain that you owe me too much money? So we have to look at things in an honest dialogue to say, here's an example. What would happen if China decided not to renew all the treasury notes that they hold? Our economy would crash. But China's not going to do that, because
doing that will hurt China too.
Would hurt China.
Will hurt China too, yes.
It's self-destructive.
Yeah. We want nobody to be hurt. We want no country to be hurt.
We want to work
I
together.
love both countries. I believe lots of folks do the same thing.
Yes.
They love both countries.
Yes.
They are number one, number two. This is important. It's no longer important who is number one, who is number two, but they are number one and number two. How about that?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Stop the argument. So you guys are number one and two. How about that? right? The third party would say, okay, sir, the number 1 and 2, like that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So as who is 1, who is 2, there are in some areas who A is 1, and there are in some areas B is 1. So how about that? Would that be an acceptable concept?
I like that concept, Jack. And the thing that we look at we may be number 1 in
military
hardware.
Education.
How about we saying they're number 1 in technological productivity? How about we say those are the kinds of things. There's no longer. Everything is so interrelated globally and bilaterally in many ways. Because look, we do a lot of. We spend a lot. Well, we go to China. A lot of Americans go to China and they spend there. Chinese, likewise, they come here and they invest very heavily in America.
And the hard money, large quantity of hard money. Oh, by the way, you go to Walmart, go to Kmart, you see those picture frames, you see the shoes, the lower priced shoes, and you see even the slippers.
Yes.
The sandals,
slippers,
right?
Flip-flops, yeah.
Yeah, those are totally made of China.
Yeah.
But how much would that cost, a full container of slippers, of sandals?
Exactly.
Yeah, a few dollars,
yes.
Right? A few dollars. Well, when China increased their quantity of export to China, their slippers and sandals and shoes, that will not reflect too much with the numbers. Well, why don't we ask China to buy something from us that worth more money to offset it?
Yes.
Right?
Exactly. Those are the kinds of negotiations that will go on. But this is something that it takes place naturally. We don't do it through antagonistic methods. We have to do it through dialogue. We have to do it through communication.
Through dialogue, through communication.
Do it by,
yes.
I'm beating you up. You have to listen to me, do it the way I want.
Okay.
We're not little high school kids anymore. We're adults and we are business people. We are people that understand there's got to be mutual respect. There's got to be mutual understanding that we can work together to resolve issues instead
if
of
I were
working against
if I
each
were the
other.
leader of China, I would sit down and write them a list. Okay, sir, Mr. Donald Trump, all right, here's the list I want to buy from you. Sell me. Right? If Donald say, hey, no, I can't sell you this, okay, sell me something else. And then I send him a second list, a revised list. And again and again and again until it comes to agreement. It's okay, all right, I sell those, to bring the number back to balance. How about that?
Well, that works well, but there's another element in this equation that we failed to address. And one of them is we, American businesses, actually go to China to have them produce a lot of our products.
Oh, yes.
So this is something that's really critical. We want to build a product A. We go there because we know that product A, if I built it in country A, may cost X number of dollars. I go to country B, it might cost a little bit more. I go to China, it's going to cost me a lot less. So as a business owner, where am I going to go? I'm going here. I'm going.
Take
to
cell phone for example.
Well, that's why I'm holding this.
Yeah, the cell phone for example.
Apple.
It is assembled in
there.
China with a plastic case made in China. That's it. With the chips, with the technology coming from everywhere of the world, though.
Right.
And then you look at the number of China, how much they are selling by doing the cell phone thing, though. That's not accurate.
This is trade outside the normal trade, but we don't add it into the equation.
Okay.
If we look at example, let's say we take an airplane. Boeing is a producer of, of the one of the largest aircraft in the world. But they don't produce the aircraft. They actually buy the parts from different countries.
Yes.
They collaborate together.
They assemble
to build,
them, yeah.
And they assemble it in a plant in Washington. We used to have one here in Long Beach, but that's going to be closing. So we do the same thing. We can do the same thing with China. We collaborate, and this is how businesses succeed. because both sides must have a win-win for them.
And China
in
does
order to
want
participate.
China does want to buy more Boeing airplanes,
Well, they do,
aircrafts, right?
But you know, as
but it's short of supply.
Exactly. I mean, their economy is growing at very, very rapid pace. They need faster transportation routes. Right now, they have the trains and other systems. They do have plane traffic within the country. It's a very big country, but it's not as interconnected by air as much as the U.S. is, and so they want
All
to
right,
increase
thank
their
you
air
very much
traffic.
for the analysis, and we're a little over time, but it's time to still we want to bring our audience some expectation, please.
Yeah.
How do you want to expect for the months to come?
Well, I think, as I said, I think saner heads will prevail. I believe that businesses will put pressure on the administration to do what is best, which is dialogue and communication, and not antagonistic approach, as always, is to solve problems. We have to stop the military approach that we're using internationally. Right now, we're applying it to business, and we have to start thinking a little differently. Militarily, it hasn't benefited us, and now business-wise, it's not going to benefit us. So trade-wise, my belief is that we're going to go back to the way it was a lot sooner than people think.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you for the expectation, which we really hope all together. Let's pray that nothing goes wrong in between the two greatest countries of the global earth, that I belong to both of them, all right? And I believe my brother Joe is the same thing. Like I joked that we're the brother by the same mother, right?
There we go.
All right, here we go. All right.
We
anyway.
have the same mother. The U.S. is our mother.
Yes, sir.
But we
sure.
have different fathers.
All right,
That's
very
okay.
good. Very
We
good.
love it.
All right, we love the fact. All right. So thank you, my dear audience, for watching. And to Commander, thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you very much, Jack.
Good.